So cool.
And good evening. Yeah, just a quick one, guys. Just letting you know, I've edited it where I've actually put an intro video into a selection. So when you click live, it says go live and start play intro at the same time, just like that.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah. Yes, I've been doing a lot of work. Anyway, happy 2026, everyone. Christmas is behind us. Um, how was your start to 2026, guys?
Yes, for me, I had a good Christmas break, and I'm outlining my plans for this year. So trying to start off set myself some goals. And don't want to daunt myself by having one big resolution. I want to try and set some sort of goals to move me forward. So yeah, I think it's exciting. Got the year ahead, it's just beginning. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Absolutely. Actually, it's not same old, is it?
No, I'm just kidding. No, it was a quiet holiday, and that was intentional, of course. But there's been a lot of, I would say, like goal planning and vision planning as to where I think where all of us are going, not just like the mental health warriors as a whole, but just like personally, I think too, where Self-care Mama mentorship is going and all of that. So it was good. It was good.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really good.
Hey, you Adam, how's
Um, honestly, it's had a little bit of a blips, just but nothing major. It's actually been a really good start to 2026. Really good start. For the first time in a long time, it has. Obviously, me and Kerry were making a hell of a lot of plans to do as a couple. So responsibility free.
good stuff?
Obviously, we've already. What I did Christmas Eve was paid for tickets to go and see a comedian called Tiny Tim in our next town. So we're going to be doing that in March.
Excellent. Good something to look forward to.
Yeah. Now I've changed my whole life at the minute. I'm going to be more proactive and stuff like that. I almost came close the other day to starting an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in face to face as well. I almost. But that didn't happen. But it's okay. It's all right. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm just keep going. Look for something else.
Well, I think proactive's the word, isn't it? I think if we want to have a good year, we've got to be proactive in sort of taking control and trying to set ourselves the goals and where we want to be by the end of the year, and we don't want.
And that all ties in with our discussion tonight about which I urge everybody to please subscribe to this channel so we can really get going with this. And it's how to turn pain into power. So yes, it is a bit of a trigger warning stream, but that's okay. I know trigger warnings here for everybody, but it's okay. I know I'm coming across different, and so I've been accused tonight of being AI, but I'm not.
Just a joke.
So my first question to you about let's dive into that understanding the pain before we get into power. I've got a few questions here, and I'm going to start with ladies first. What specific experiences caused the pain?
What
And then
specific?
when did you first realize it was affecting you?
Oh, okay, so I would say, and we've talked about this before on the show, but as far as like unmet expectations, and I think that boils down to non-communicated expectations, which then turns them into unmet expectations. And I think that can cause pain. That can cause not just like our own mental health pain, but also like rejection and feeling unloved and unwanted and unworthy and unvalued and all of the unwords, right? So it's recognizing, first of all, that we have to communicate those expectations so they have an opportunity to be met. And then if there's pain that shows up in that, we need to then like go to ourselves and wonder why. Like, why is this particular situation triggering me? Why is this particular situation like making me feel unloved, unwanted, unneeded, rejected, all of the things? Because typically, when pain like that shows up, it stems back to something happening in our childhood. So there's some sort of childhood wound or trauma, if you will, that is causing that trigger to show up as an adult. Because when traumas happen at certain ages, you can kind of get stuck in that, like in that stage of development. And one of the healing journeys that I went on, was that last year? No, 2024, that I had gone on. It was called Arrested in Development. So when something happens to you at that specific age, that can cause you as an adult to then respond the way that you respond, behave the way that you respond, or behave the way that you do, because you're stuck in that like developmental age. So
yeah.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because I could obviously keep going, but I'll give Nick an opportunity.
Well, Nick, I've got. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, talk about sort of like uncertainty, and I think like Tony Robbins said that there's a line of uncertainty, and we all like a certain amount of certainty, as in we know that there's comfort and there's insecurity and so much certainty. You know, we know we've got to have an income coming in, enough money, certainty. It's there's stability in our life, but at the same time, if we have too much, then life will be boring with a bit of uncertainty, excitement. But I think uncertainty can be quite stressful in our lives, in the sense that, you know, if there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, but also, you know, if your job's uncertain, or your, you know, money's uncertain, you know, ups and downs, then, you know, that can be a big pain point. And I think uncertainty, you know, certainly, definitely I can relate to that myself, you know, and I think in a wider way, certainly in the UK, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, there's cost of living crisis, and I think there's, you know, job market is quite low, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of wider issues affect people's lives and comfort living, and I think uncertainty is a big thing. You know, if we're not sure that we can rely on having regular work, enough money coming in, and be able to look after our family and you know, plan for our future, I think this can be quite a burden. So I think uncertainty is definitely something that can become a pain point in our lives.
Yeah. And that uncertainty played a part in our lives over the last couple of months, because me and Kerry was actually talking. Obviously, we need to move. We need a bigger house, and we was talking about like the qualification that I've got, where I'm capable of being a clinical psychologist with the qualification I've got, and we were looking at like different countries to move, and one of them was actually America. I can't remember whereabouts. I think it was North Carolina or San Francisco, whenever it was. And one of them was offering to pay 250,000 a year for me to be one in America. And then obviously we started to look at house hunting, and there was a 7-bed house, etc., etc. And it was beautiful. It was in a price range, stuff like that. And then we looked at moving there, like going to get a visa and stuff like that. It's going to cost 10 grand just to move the cats. So, and that was like a put off. That was a put off. But it's okay, because that may be out of the question, but it may be part of the future. Who knows? Then we looked at Australia. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But is it uncertainty? I'm going to say no. But have I got clarity on that? Yes. And it's making that plan. And you go on back to finance. It's like I believe we can afford anything. Speaking realistic, we can afford anything. If we put our mind to it, and we have to think about what we're spending, and if we really need that thing or want that thing or whatever. It just matters. But anyway, moving on because I'm just going to go ramble on.
It's
But
interesting because I've got a question to you then. Like,
go for it.
you said about how, I mean, with pain, the word pain, turning pain to power. Is pain in that sense, or challenges or stress? Is it needed, in our lives for us to
Yes,
move forward to self improvement? In the sense that,
yes.
sometimes pain can give us motivation to take action. Where maybe if we didn't have enough pain, we'd be stuck in a situation, wouldn't do anything. And I suppose that's. Do you
I
think?
believe we do need pain in our lives. We do need it because if we have an easy life and there's no challenges or anything like that, no barriers, what kind of world would we actually be living in right now? So I believe that little bit of
A little bit,
negativity can actually be healthy for us and our mindset
yeah.
because it's giving us that opportunity to provide the tools, the strategies into healing.
I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Having the right tools and the right mindset and strategies to take the positive action for any challenges or pain.
Time and effort. Time and effort. That's all it is. Time and effort.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. Right. So next one, I'm going to move on to it now. What emotions are you both current and this by everyone in the comments as well? What emotions are you still carrying even today that you haven't named yet when it comes to the pain?
They haven't named yet.
Hmm. That's what I've got here. Go on, Ashley. I know you've got something.
Well, it's hard to say if I really honestly do, because I think any of the pain that I've carried, or things that I've been triggered on, a lot of times, quite honestly, it has come down to resentment, bitterness, and probably fear, because a lot of those emotions, ultimately the center is fear. So it's
Yeah.
all of these other like side emotions, right? And I can get pretty good, like when I sit down and really think about it, I can name emotions that I think come up fairly well, other than like fear and anger, right? Um, but again, that's because there's been work done for that, right? There's been a lot of breakthroughs that have happened because I was willing to go to those places, and I was willing to have conversations, I guess you could say. I did recently have a friend tell me, she's like, I cry all the time, and I think I've hardly ever seen you shed a tear, which is weird to me. Like, I don't become an emotional person until it's either reached the maximum that I can hold, where then it has to come out, type of a deal. As far as like, say, crying or something like that, it, especially in like difficult situations, like if there's a huge fight or there's like all of this emotion that's building, then yes, it will come out in like a weeping or like the ugly cry, right? That women like to call it. But it has to reach that point before it just comes out.
Well,
It doesn't just come out.
you were talking about feeling resentment, and straight away I've got something that came to mind. In my, would some of that be part of your inner ego?
As far as resentment is concerned,
Because we've all got an ego.
Of course,
we do. I think it can. And the reason I say that is because when we make situations all about us. Now, I'm not saying, okay, so let me back up a little bit, because obviously I'm known as the self-care mama, right? So it's self-care that isn't putting you in a selfish mindset or a selfish mind frame, right? That it all becomes about me. It's all about me. Like, screw all of you. Like, this is all about me. That's not what I do. Okay. So when you're talking like the ego portion of ourselves, that's the selfish piece. That's the prideful piece. That's the piece that puts us also into victimhood. That it's all about me and you need to cater about me. And then when you don't, then I'm going to get bitter at you. I'm going to get resentful. Like, so it can go into the ego, especially when we put ourselves into, like I said, that victimhood, that I didn't do anything wrong. It's all you. And that's that ego versus owning our part in scenarios and arguments and all of the things, right? Because we have our own parts to play. But when you don't want to own that and you don't want to admit that, then that resentment and bitterness can definitely become egocentric.
I wonder if we instinctively, we put ourselves first. Instinctively, we're egocentric in a way. I kind of think sometimes, we're kind of instinctively selfish. It's like a primal survival thing, isn't it? Left over from the original days. So we instinctively, and actually that's what we kind of have to get our balance and learn how to do, is actually, not be so egocentric. I think that's
and that's a point, because like when I'm struggling, like obviously people know me that I go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm not afraid to admit that or anything like that. But when I'm struggling, like I've got a motto that lives in my head rent free, is I'd rather struggle sober than live my best day lives drunk. I'd rather do that. And when I've done a meeting, for example, and I'm still struggling, I want to do another meeting. But a small part of me, because they're like an hour's long, sometimes even longer, and a small part of me feels that guilt that I'm prioritizing my well-being. Like, I'm not being selfish, self-centered, or anything like that, or being an asshole. But I'm prioritizing my needs and my life to help me. So then, when I'm in a good place, I can help other people, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's the family. And when I do that, that's good. That's good. But that small part of me feels like, should I be really doing this? Should I really leave Kerry with Wyatt again for longer when he's been being one of the people at the minute? But
sure.
but I understand why. So no, I'm not being self-centered. I'm prioritizing me, and that is self-care in a way, and self-love.
Of course. It's interesting. Because going back to that question of like emotion, I think self-doubt is one thing that I think I have at times. I think whenever we do something new and we take a challenge, I think we all have a little moment of self-doubt. Can I do this? Will I be able to do it? You never know till you do it. And I've got a friend who's a coach who coaches people who are CEOs of companies, people at the top of right to the top, earning really huge salaries, managing huge companies, and she coaches them on their mindset, and you'd think those people wouldn't have any doubts or at all, because they're obviously clearly have success, a lot of money, but I think the point is that whatever level, people have self-doubt. You always wonder, well, can I can I still make do what I'm doing successfully? Will next year be better? Can I make the next step? And at whatever level, whatever we do, even everyone thinks whatever the top, they're okay. Everyone has that self-doubt. I think it at times, I think it's a sort of reminder when I was chatting to my friend that actually it's a normal thought to have at times, isn't it? That we all have that.
Think of it as new level, new devil. Because every level that you enter, every level of growth that you enter, there's going to be something that is going to attempt to knock you down. I see it in construction business. I see it in my business. Like, I see it all over the place. So it's definitely something that is a real thing, because you have to constantly be in this state of expansion, because your income will never outgrow your mental state. So if you feel like you're unworthy, you're undeserving, you're not good enough, you're unvalued, all of the things, your income cannot go past that level of mental capacity. So you have to look at yourself as always in expansion, always growing, always, I don't even want to say achieving, but like, you are trusting the process along the way and knowing that you have room for more. But that also means, to make room for more, you need to shed other things. You need to shed other beliefs. You need to shed other, sometimes it's even expectations of others and expectations of yourself. But you also have to shed the pain and the traumas and all of the baggage. Because if you keep carrying that with you, like, you're gonna get stuck. At some point, it's going to be so incredibly heavy, you can't carry it with you anymore. So you have to make the decision of, is all of this shit going to come with me in the new year? Because if the answer is yes, then, my friend, don't expect to grow. Like, you have to get rid of it.
I guess it goes back. So going back to my first thing I said, almost. I think sometimes a lot of people, I speak to, it's about coaches. It's all or nothing. They have, this is where I need to be. And I think that's a New Year's resolution thing. This is my New Year's resolution. But if you don't get that, you fail. You succeed or fail if you've got one big thing. But I think it's about setting those. There's constantly setting little goals. As long as the goals are ones you're invested in, as in they mean something to you. This all something you really want to achieve, because it means something to you personally. Then you're constantly setting goals, because that way you're constantly moving forward in whatever way you want, rather than just one big thing. And I think that's I think if we place everything in one big, this is what success means, or this is where I want to be, then there's a lot of there's a lot of risk, obviously, if you don't hit that. But if you're constantly, like Ashly said, moving forward, learning, developing, by setting little goals, then that's more likely to be a positive outcome.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Which I think you two are seeing these questions, because you've got to talk about that. And this comes to my next question about reframing the story. If I removed shame from the story, what would change? Oh, I'm loving these questions.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. Nick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think we, I mean, we all have our own unique story, and our story, is what makes us. What led, to us being where we are now, and our story obviously doesn't. It continues the rest of our life, but I think that's, when you listen to, big speakers, often, when you listen to speakers on stage, and they're motivational, inspiring, it's often their story that actually you connect with. And even if even sort of companies, or businesses, and it's very often they share their small business as how they started. It's the story of how they grew. So I think stories are such a powerful thing. If they're authentic and true. And I think with my I think with my looking myself, definitely we have our ups and downs in our story, and we have to own the ups and the downs and the ups. And I think it's we could sort of filter our story out and give an idealized view of our story, but I think it's sort of owning it, as in everything that's happened has led to where we are, and it's just part of the story. It carries on, and so I think definitely we all have times of struggle, which you could term shame, or do you own it and say, it's just part of the journey, part of the story.
Yeah, I think Ashly.
So when we put ourselves into a shame cycle based off of a circumstance, right? Because our life is filled with circumstances. But ultimately, those circumstances become our story. So when we start telling ourselves that I'm not good enough for XYZ, or I suck at money, or I'm broke as a joke, or like any negative story that you constantly repeat and tell yourself, that ultimately deep down puts us into a shame spiral, because we feel bad, we feel guilty. And then instead of taking actions to change that particular story or that particular circumstance, we go to things like this. And we distract ourselves with everything but the things that we know we need to be doing, right? And then that continues to create those specific results. I suck at money. I'm broke as a joke. Like it just keeps going around and around in this crazy circle. And we don't necessarily know how to get off of it until somebody like myself or another coach really walks you through the mental mindsets of, okay, well, what if here is your particular circumstance? Say you're $100,000 in debt, because money is always that particular topic that can usually send us into a shame spiral real fast. And it's the easiest one to go off. So say you're $100,000 in debt. Okay, that's your circumstance, right? That's a solid proof. Here's a solid number. Nothing is different, right? It's just a number. But it's the proof, it's the truth. And then your thought becomes, okay, I'm $100,000 in debt. What if this money is neutral? What if? Like, okay, like look at it with a neutral like thought process. And then you can dig into those feelings based off of that thought. Like this number doesn't make me a bad human, right? Because we automatically internalize the negative into making it mean something about this. So this situation, this circumstance, it doesn't mean anything about me. I am still of value. I am still enough. I am still worthy. So then you go into the feelings about that. Okay, well, what feelings can you offer your brain? And then, okay, what results or what actions do we then need to take to get the results that we want, which is a zero balance instead of 100,000, right? So what actions do we then need to take? Okay, I'm going to get creative. How am I going to make money? Where can I sell some things, right? What other side jobs can I pick up? Like maybe I ask for a raise at work. Like you go into action taking mode, which then gives you the results of, okay, now I've picked up a second job. I can take that income and I can chunk it towards this $100,000, right? So now you're taking action, which is building your belief in yourself that you can accomplish this versus putting yourself in, I'm a terrible human, I'm terrible with money, like, and you get into that shame spiral. So again, it all comes down to your mindset. And why are you telling yourself that? Because it had to stem from somewhere. You had to see it from somewhere. Growing up, maybe your parents weren't really great with money. So you took on that story for yourself and continued to repeat patterns. So that's all it is. It comes down to the mindset. And yes, it's easier said than done to get out of a shame spiral, but it is possible. Sometimes you just need help to see it from a different perspective.
It reminds me of Richard Branson's autobiography, and when he was talking about it when it came out, and he said that everyone sees his successes and how wealthy he is, and just see him as only being successful. And he said that when you read my book, you'll see how many of my books failed, how many businesses failed, and how I've lost a lot of money and the stress that came. But people only see, well, Richard Branson's got an airline, he's got his island, but actually don't see that, no one knows or sees that actually I nearly lost my marriage, I became so much in debt, my business failed. And I think that's, that's the thing. We sometimes we only see, the black and white in it almost. But yeah, a lot of people I coach, you always have to think, start afresh. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And moving forwards. And I think a lot of people automatically define themselves, or by where they've been. So it's trying to say, okay, well that's happened, but this is redefining yourself almost. This is some of setting goals to, this is almost starting afresh. Because if you're constantly defining yourself for what's happened to you, where you've been, then you're never going to move forward.
Well, it's much like the. I used to have this printed and up in like on a vision board or something like that, right? So look at it as the iceberg, right? You only see what's above the surface, which is the success. What you don't see underneath it, and I pulled up the image, but what you don't see underneath it is like the persistence, the hard work, the discipline, the criticism, the sacrifice, the failures, the doubts, the risks, right? You don't see all of the crap underneath it because it's either something that you're not looking for, or those particular people aren't sharing that portion of the story, unless you write like an autobiography or something along those lines, where then you spill the beans, right? And you talk about those things. But again, it's all about your perspective and your perception. And I have this, or I should say my husband, and I do too, but like we have conversations about this with people all the time. And I know we've talked about this before, like people see what they want to see. They can see the nice truck. They can see this. They can see the equipment, or, oh, you're taking this vacation, or you're taking this trip, and all of that, right? Those are the successes that they see. And then they think, oh, well, it must be nice. But again, what you don't see is the dedication, the time away from family, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into building the business to be able to then hope like hell, like, oh, we get to take a week off. And mind you, that's not a paid vacation, my friends. That is a vacation of no paycheck coming in, and we're taking a risk going away from the business, hoping that employees are going to take over while we're gone, or things are still going to get accomplished and no shit's going to hit the fan while you're gone, like all of the things, right? So it really drives me bananas when people will say, oh, it must be nice. Again, you don't see the time away, like from the family, the expenses, like the income to expense ratio, like the debt that's carried, all
Yeah,
of
no,
that. It's
I
stressful.
relate to it. Yeah.
It is stressful to own a business. Now, would I choose a different life? No.
What are you adding? Because you shared earlier, before in the show, some great goals you're achieving. But I guess the same. You've the journey to those goals. Obviously it's been challenging for you. But you share the goals and you think. I mean, if you guys share your goals, you share your achievements. It's like, wow, it's really impressive. But obviously, yeah, the same. What it took to achieve that. That's a story.
Yeah, it definitely is a story, and I was actually going to ask this particular question: how would this story sound if I told it from a place of growth instead of loss? But I think we've already covered that, so I'm gonna up my game with this one. How has this pain sharpened my empathy or awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we've been through something, we can have more empathy with other people who are going through the same thing. I think there's definitely an element of that. I think if we've been through certain challenges and then we talk to someone who's been through similar challenges, then obviously it's easier to relate. I think there is something in that, and I think certainly with myself, I've been through financial challenges and relationship challenges and homeless and I think that's actually helped me have empathy and understanding and a bit of relatability with the people I talk to and coach. So I think definitely, yeah, I think that's only a good thing if you've
What about this one? What about this one? I know Ashley all throughout 2025 was asking, "Who am I? Who am I?" So I'm going to ask you both this: who are you, but beyond the what happened to you?
So when I think of the beyond the what happened to me, I think of when I was sick, right? Because that's honestly where the pivotal moments have come from in my life, where I knew that, okay, I can't keep living this way. It's unhealthy for my marriage, it's unhealthy for my kids, it's way unhealthy for me. So going through the process of who I am, it really required and still does require me to remember that my label as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a coach, as whatever, those are roles that I play. That is not my true identity of who I am, because I am a creative, confident, bold, like empowered human being. And it's remembering that,
I thought
because
it was a
it's,
badass.
well, and I am a badass. I am a badass, right? But like, it's remembering that when we can get so caught up in our day-to-day lives as business owners, as employees, as parents, as all the things, right? The things that we do, we get caught up in that versus who we are as a human being. And I thoroughly have to remember that it's also not just like the quote unquote identity, the way that I see myself. It's also the way that my Heavenly Father sees me. He sees me as redeemed, as loved, as worthy, as enough, more precious than rubies. Like, I am important to him, and the hairs on my head are numbered. Like, he knew me and knew what I was going to do and become before I was even formed in my mother's womb. Like, it's written in the book. He knew me. So even on my worst days, he knows me. Like, he already had a plan for that. Like, when I go off the rails, I do things I shouldn't do. I know you. Come back this way, right? So he redeems me, and I am covered in his mercy and his grace and all of the things. So that's my personal, like, that's me, right? So it's knowing that and remembering that, though, because it's very easy to get caught up in the worldly identity of, I'm just a mom, I'm just a wife, I'm just a business owner, I'm just, right? But I'm more than that. And that's what I want people to see, especially in 2026. Like, there was a lot that happened for me in 2025. Especially the last half of the year. I feel like it was like one thing after another, and all in good things, not bad things, good things. But it's just, it's not getting caught up in all of those and really remembering the woman that showed up as her, like, most confident self in the middle of being terrified of, like, holy crap, what am I doing, right? And is this even going to work? And buckle up, buttercup, here we go. Like, you asked for this and now it's happening type of a deal. There's fear, there's scared out of my pants type of situations, right? But doing it anyway, because again, I have that boldness and I have that capability to do it.
Yeah, if I was to add sort of my own, I guess it's maybe sort of similar in some ways, but yeah, it's clarity. It's being really clear, who I am, what I stand for, how I help people. And I think sometimes we can sometimes get to the point of trying to do everything and trying to, do more and more things to, particularly in business, do more things and more channels, and then we can, we get overwhelmed and and then you can lose that clarity of actually, who are you and what do you do, and really about clarity. And there's that saying, if with your clients, if you confuse them, you lose them, in the sense that if you overwhelm them and don't be really clear over what you offer and how you help them. And I think it's the same with ourselves. I know at times I was like doing more and more things and I was confusing myself. I always thought, to go back to basically, well, who am I and how do I help people? And I think that's having that crystal clear clarity this year. And I think, yes, on a personal level, I'm a proud father and passionate about mental health awareness. But my business, I've know the difference, the mindset can make things. So I coach people, improve their mindset, and I think it's those almost 4 points. So actually, that clarity, for this year of who I am and how I help people. I think if you don't have a really that clear, that clarity over who you are, what you do, how you want to help people, and I think that's when you can sometimes have a overwhelm.
Yeah, and this comes to it, we're talking boundaries now. We're always talking, people are always talking about putting boundaries onto other people, but there's never talk about boundaries on ourselves. So what boundaries protects the power that you've already built?
I think for me, it's again, setting expectations. Not just expectations of myself, but expectations of those around me. And it's also, if I say that I'm going to do something, now I'm not 100% perfect at this, and I don't think anybody is, but if I say that I'm going to do something, honoring that to myself. And it's like that self-trust and self-belief. Because if I let myself down by not doing what I said I was going to do, right? That's ultimately what I'm doing. I'm telling myself that, again, you don't honor you. You don't believe in yourself. Like, and again, it goes into that damn shame spiral again, right? Because that's just what our brains do. Our brains are meant to protect us. So it's setting boundaries that honor ourselves. And whether that's verbally saying them to other people around us, or whether that's just simply saying no and letting your no be no. You don't need an explanation. You don't have to justify it. You just say no. Like, that doesn't work for me. Peace. Right? And that's why when people ask me how my Christmas was, it was quiet. Why? Because that was intentional. Because I set boundaries, right? I don't go into toxic family situations anymore. I ditched that like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So instead, I make other arrangements to spend time with my grandmother and our family, right? And I remove myself from that because I'm setting a boundary of I'm not going to tolerate that anymore. So it becomes peaceful. And then I go to one other place, which is my in-laws, so they can spend time with the kids for Christmas. And that's it. I don't do all of the aunts, uncles, and here, and here. So if I'm asked, hey, are you going to XYZ? Nope. That's my response. Not going. Because it's intentional that way. And then if anybody wants to spend time with us, then they're welcome to come to our house. But I'm not doing it. I'm not catering to everybody else's whim and desire and all the things. So it becomes an intentionality. And
That's how big people pleasing, wasn't it?
yes, it cuts a lot of people pleasing, because then I don't have to be put in awkward situations where I need to say things that I don't really mean and perform in a way I really don't want to, and all the things, right? And just put on the, hey, how's it going? I don't want to be here. But you don't have to put on that fakeness anymore, because again, you're being intentional and you're setting a boundary. No is a boundary. And that's it. Like, it's easier said than done sometimes, especially when you allow people over the years to constantly cross your boundaries and you do have a habit of people pleasing, and then you feel guilty. Well, what if it's grandma's last Christmas? Figure out a different time to spend with grandma then, right? It's things like that, again, that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, I think there's this creep factor in the sense that, time is precious, is a resource, like money, time is a resource. And I think it's easy to have that creep thing where, if you work on your business, you say, I'll do a little bit of weekend, just catch up on things, do an hour in the morning, then I'm caught up. And then that creeps down a little bit more, and then, can be a little bit more. And before you know it, the lines between, so personal time, social time, business can be blurred. And I think that we have to try and, for me, boundaries about time, because, I set myself time for I'm going to work on my business, and I put everything into it, and I commit myself, and then I have, time for break, and then 100% time for focusing. But then I know that when I have social time, I switch off, and I think it's having those clear boundaries for time, because otherwise I know that it'll creep and it'll merge into one, and then I don't really know whether, social and business all becomes one, and then you lose the quality of both almost. And the other boundary, I think, is social media, that, again, that's, increasingly spend a lot of time, but also I think you can for myself, you can be sort of, you open up when you go on social media, open to comments, you're open to responding. And I think, then you can become too invested in responding to people, the comments you get. So I think you've got to set boundaries for myself with social media.
You know what? I agree. I agree. It's time we shut off making all these lame excuses for ourselves to people, please. Because going off the comment what you said about grandma's last Christmas and stuff like that. Now, as sad as everything is, yeah, um, it could be anyone's last Christmas. It could even be the three of us right now. This could be our final year here because nobody knows what tomorrow brings. Nobody knows because at the end of the day, people die all the time. So, and that's why I choose to live life because I could not wake up tomorrow. That's a possibility. Anything's possible. But I don't want to think about that. I want to think about the here and now. And what happened yesterday, well, that's a lesson learned.
I think it's so true. There's a book by someone called Bronte Ray, I think it was, now to look up her name, and it was called The Regrets of the Dying. And basically, she interviewed or chatted to a lot of people who are in hospices on a sort of dying, on their sort of deathbed or dying, and chatted to them about their where they look back on their life. And they all basically, they regretted, that life was precious. And they regretted the things they hadn't done, and never regretted the things they had done, and they regretted spending more time, obviously, with family and doing more. And I think it's an interesting point that actually it shows that people never regret making, the money or the business. It was all about the quality of life and not doing more and not, seizing the day. And I think, like you say, you don't want to get to that point where you're old looking back regrets. You want to value your time now. And
I think even for me, like after I was sick, and I think that's where a lot of my bitterness and resentment came from, because after having that experience, my perspective shifted, and it was like, okay, I want to take the vacations, I want to go the places, like I want to make memories. Like life isn't about things. Like things are great, things are bonus, like whatever, right? But it's, I want to take the kids and I want to go here. I want to go here with my husband. I want those memories, right? But it's also getting past the whole, then we put into it, okay, well, what does our bank account tell us? Because our bank account says we can't go on vacation. And my thought process is, I don't give a shit if we need to put it on a credit card. Like, I want to get out of here. I want to make memories with you because life is too freaking short, right?
I agree.
And, I mean, I'm not advocating to go into debt, right? But believe me, I have plenty. I own a business. Like, there's shit, right? But like at the end of the day, it's also, if I don't intentionally plan something to spend time, quality time away with my husband for a weekend or a week or whatever it is, it won't happen because he's too focused on the financial piece of it versus the long lasting like investment into us.
I identify with that massively because I admit I've fucked up massively over the years with Kerry. I admit I've fucked up. But now I put that drink down and I'm not blaming the drink anymore, I'm blaming me. I'm making all them amends up. I'm making all them memories up, all them years up. I'm doing all that. Is it hard work? Is it gritty work? Of course it is. Is she making my life hard and making me fight for it? Of course she is. And to be honest, I want her to. I wanted to. Now she just looked at me thinking, "You bastard."
Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing too. Like, it's not that my husband doesn't enjoy the time away, right? But I also have to be conscious of the fact that, again, we are business owners. So when we do go away, it is added stress onto him, especially if I take him away like for a week, right? But if I do a weekend, that's one thing. But that's added stress on him because he's constantly thinking about, okay, what isn't getting done? What money am I missing out on because projects, I'm not going on estimates, and like it's a mental game for him. So it requires a lot of like, I have to keep him busy so his focus is other places. So if we go away for say like a week to Arizona, then I better have figured out, okay, where can we go hiking? What activities can we do together? Like, what experiences can we have together to keep his brain off of the fact that I'm not at home, I'm not making money, like I'm not getting paid for this vacation. This vacation is costing me thousands of dollars. Like, what can I do to keep him like moving, if you will? But it's also like taking the photos and having the memories and the experiences and all of that. So, I mean, it has pros and cons, right? But it's also like, it's also important. It is.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because me and Kerry are in a similar situation, because obviously this year it's going to be 1 year since we've become married couple, and obviously I want to do something that we've never done before, and that is responsibility free. Have that night away, just me and her, nobody else, and obviously no one around us or anything like that. But she's obviously got those concerns, which is totally understandable and acceptable. Where she's thinking about finances, and she's also thinking about childcare and stuff like that. So it's trying to find the words to reassure her to say it's going to be okay.
It's like, I guess it's we had the dream and reality, isn't it? We all dream about great things we want to do, but then reality almost kicks in as a like a little check, and it's
well, and it's planning enough in advance. So if you plan enough in advance for it, you can make it happen. Now, that isn't to say that she's not going to be like, oh my gosh, how are the kids? Like panicked, right? But I think in the end, the more you do it and the more you plan for it, the easier it gets. So, like Gary and I, we are in a few weeks, well, in February, a month from now, we are going to be celebrating being together for 21 years. This year, we will be married for 18 years. Our 20-year anniversary, come hell or high water, I am going someplace tropical. I don't know where yet. Ideally, I would love Hawaii because that's where I originally wanted us to get married. But I can't guarantee that. Maybe it ends up being the Dominican Republic. Maybe it ends up being the Florida Keys. I don't care. I just want palm trees and hot. Okay, that's all I want. And of course, we got married in June, so there's also that factor. But like, to me, that's very important to me. And on the back end, I'm doing my best to like plan for that. But there's also unexpected things that come up that always throw a monkey wrench in what you have planned, right? So it's being willing to also like go with the flow of how this is going to turn out, how this is going to pan out. If I can't do Hawaii or the Dominican Republic, I'll settle for the Florida Keys. I'll figure it out where it becomes continental United States. Whatever. I can pivot if I have to pivot. But like, it's also knowing that this is an investment. Palm trees and bloody hot, not to mention human. Yes, I was supposed to have Japan as my graduation gift.
It's on my list.
My aunt is Japanese. That didn't happen. But like, it's it's also realizing, like I said, the more you plan for it and the more you do it, the easier it gets. Because for us, we've got 6 kids here at home, plus the dogs and all of the things, right? So I need to make sure that somebody can either stay at my house or I can send my kids and then get a dog sitter. So it's like between kids and dogs, like dogs are at least $1,000+ for somebody to take care of them for a week. And making sure they've got all the food and all the things that they need, right? So it's a lot of planning and organizing. But then once you take that trip, then it becomes okay, mom and dad will be back. Peace out. See you in a couple days. And it's refreshing, and you get to the point where you're not checking in. You're just like, they'll be fine. We'll see them in 2 days.
Well, we're only going for a night away anyway. So
and that's where you start. Like, that's what I recommend to all couples, because if you've never gotten away together in years, it's going to be tough. It's going to be rough the first time that you do it.
2017 last time we was childcare free.
But I think also it's like, it's. I mean, there's a saying, fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I think definitely, I believe, more prepared, the less risk of things going wrong, but also prepared for things may not go as planned as well. But I think also, if it's about committing. So if once when you're planning and preparing, you're committing to it. And I think that's a good thing, because otherwise, just talking about things often don't happen. But once you've made a commitment, this is what we're going to do, set the date. Like you and Kerry, that's half the thing, isn't it? Half the thing is
we're not diverting,
and then the rest sort of falls.
Well, we're not diverting we're not diverting away from the topic, because we're actually identifying the pain of planning all this. Then in the outcome of it, it's going to be power. So we're going to actually do something.
Yeah.
But on that note, I think it's been a good topic. So we're going to be back next week. We don't know the topic yet, so obviously us three are just going to discuss it off camera. And please do subscribe and share. So, any final words, guys?
Yeah, my final words are, start 2026. I think, set your vision, your dream, for this year, and then set some manageable goals, some realistic goals, because any goal you take that you reach and achieve is taking you towards that. It's taking you forward. I think that's the main thing. As long as you do something that you're moving forward to where you want to be, that's all that matters. That's the most positive thing. And
I think to piggyback off of what Nick said, taking action, but be willing to take imperfect action. Because it's not going to look pretty sometimes, but you have to make those steps every single day to get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm piggybacking off both of you. I've made 3 goals for myself to do this year anyway. And I'm already starting them all 3 in one go.
Good stuff for you. Great. Good stuff for you.
Absolutely. So on that note, we'll see you next week.
Onwards and upwards.
See ya.
Bye.